My name is Chelsea Sipes, and I am interviewing Margie VanDyke on February 15th, 2016. Margie, could you please spell your first and your last name for us?
Margie, capital VAN, capital DYKE, Margie VanDyke.
There's a space between the VanDyke, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, what year were you born?
1941.
And are you from Indiana originally?
Yes.
Where at in Indiana?
In the town.
Just in the town?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was your childhood like growing up in the town?
Wonderful. Total idea of freedom. You could leave the house in the morning and never come home until time for supper, or when the lights went on outside, one way or the other. You joined up with kids in the neighborhood. You didn't have your parents having play dates and picking your friends for you. You were free to do all of that. If you were clear on the other end of town on your bike, that was fine. That's what you did. You just rode around and went on hikes in the woods or whatever you might want to do, and there was nothing to impede it. The growing up was just really, really nice. It was calm. It was structured, yes, and you always had a sense of knowing how you were supposed to behave, but there were no constraints other than that in what you could do. It was just nice.
Good. So it was winter-like in Indiana growing up?
Pretty much like it is right now. But we never had school. In the whole years of going to school, through graduating through high school, we only once had a day off, and that was the Thanksgiving snowstorm of 1951, I believe it was. And that's the only time the schools were ever off.
So you didn't get out of school for
Nope.
extreme cold weather or ice or...
Nope.
Wow.
And it was something you just you handled it. It wasn't any big deal.
Did they do school buses or did you guys walk?
Actually, there were school buses for the kids that would come in from out in the outlying areas. There was a school bus for a couple of years from Keith to pick up the kids around town, but that only lasted a year or two, and I don't know, why it stopped. Mm-hmm. But we managed to walk usually, and I was clear on the other end of town from where Keith is, so we had a gang of us, and you started out and you picked up one at this corner and another one at that corner. We ended up all going over together.
Did you guys do sledding or anything?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. All the kids' things. We were free to be kids back then. You actually had the freedom to be a kid. And really no limits on what that meant as long as you behaved yourselves.
What did you do for fun in the summer?
Swimming. All kinds of things that you normally do in the summer. I like to read a lot in the evenings if we weren't doing anything else. Actually, in the summertime, when we were growing up, the stores would close on Wednesday afternoons for the fathers to be able to have a family day with their kids. And we'd either go swimming or maybe go to Idlewild Park or any of the things that a family would want to do. And all the stores would close from noon until the next morning. There'd be one pharmacy open in town and one gas station, but everybody else closed up and everybody had a family day. It was really, really nice.
Were businesses closed on Sundays?
Yes.
All the time?
Oh, yeah. And no movies.
Nothing?
No. And it was nice. Everybody got a chance to take a deep breath and regroup for Monday and the rest of the week. It was a nice way of doing things. It would probably help this world a lot today to do that kind of thing, just kind of have a break that everybody could just kind of regroup.
I agree. Be nice.
Mm-hmm.
So what year did you start attending the Keith School?
46.
46.
Mm-hmm.
Did your parents have a connection to it that
No.
made them want you to go?
No.
No? Okay. So what do you recall was happening in the world in 46 while you're going to school in terms of world history?
Okay, World War II obviously was happening, and you became aware of things like that just by having dinner at the dinner table at night. Everybody had a family dinner. We didn't have sports interfering with family time as it does now. And everybody had family dinners, and that's when you discussed what you learned at school that day, what had happened in the town, what had happened in the world, what had happened at your parents' business, whatever that might be. And you just everybody had a sense of what was happening, and you learned from it. And you learned a lot. I remember when King George in England died, and when his daughter, Princess Elizabeth, became Queen Elizabeth. All those kinds of things stick with you when you grow up experiencing them or hearing about them in your time. That's important.
Did it impact your education at all?
I don't know if it was any impact on the education part so much as having lived it, you remembered it when you got to, like, studying in World War II in school. You lived it, so you remembered certain things. I think what it did was make you aware enough that you became, you knew that you needed to be aware of things and learn from them, and to have a curiosity and an instance of wanting to learn about those things, so that you were always aware. You certainly didn't want to have somebody ask you a question and you didn't know what they were talking about, so it gave you an incentive to want to know those things.
So that kind of helped, like, raise your awareness of what was going on.
Absolutely. And the importance of being aware.
So why did your parents want you to attend Keith School?
I'm going to that.
And were you there when it was K through 10 or K through 6?
10.
K through 10.
Mm-hmm.
When did it switch to K through 6?
Probably.
So who were your best friends
I think it was
at
early
school
60s,
growing up?
Maybe 62, 63. Well, they're still best friends now. That's one of the things back then, that when you had a friend, they became your life
Had a good
friends.
couple, 30 years of K through 10 before it switched to K through 6.
In my case, there were 5 or 6 of us, and where you saw one, you saw all the rest of us. And we did everything together, and to this day, it's like, even though we've raised families and been away from each other, when you get back together again, it's like we pick up where we left off as if nothing had been in between. And that's a tight friendship that way. You're always there for them no matter what. We've had 1 or 2 of them pass on now, which was difficult, but we were all there.
Do you try to get together often?
When we can. Some of them are pretty far spread out, but
Okay.
yeah, we kind of look for ways to get together, yeah.
So a few of them moved out of the area.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see them at the reunion then?
Oh, yes.
Did they all
It's
came
nice
in for
to
it?
have those lifetime
one.
ties. It makes it all worthwhile, and it's
So what were
fun
your
to have
teachers like
those
at Keith?
Same
Absolutely
people have the same
phenomenal.
experiences that
They were
you
just
have,
great.
and when you get together, you have all those memories.
The
that you
class
can pull up and
sizes,
talk about and
everybody
laugh.
talks about having 20
It's like
kids
to
in
go
a
back to
class
that
now.
time. We had 30, 35, sometimes 40 in the different classes down through the years, depending on who was here. And some people would leave and come back, or people would come in. But you could have as many as 35 or 40 in a classroom, and the kids still learn without it being a problem. And you had one teacher as your focal point, and then you had student teachers. And that teacher was able to manage the whole classroom, plus the student teachers, and everybody came out of there with a really, really good education, no matter what the subject might be. They were phenomenal, and they cared about you. In fact, I know of 2 teachers that when they retired stayed in town instead of moving anywhere else, because they had such an interest in their students that they wanted to stick around, because they knew they'd find out how they were doing, to be able to keep track of them if they stuck around here and get to see them every now and then. And it was really nice. We got to see them quite often, actually, through the years. One of them
running into them in town.
one of them just died last year, and she was 101.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yep.
Wow. How many teachers would you say Keith had?
Well, there was
Generally.
one for every grade. So kindergarten through 10, and then you had your teachers for beyond your regular subjects. You had, of course, art and music and phys ed, and that was about it. But we had, I suppose, the luxury, certainly the ultimate opportunity, to take in things that were happening up on campus at Fisher, so that if the Navy band came in, or the Air Force chorus, or whatever might be coming to town, we had the opportunity to go up and hear them. The town had an awful lot of things that we don't have today, like the big Coca-Cola plant used to be on Church Street, and we could go take a field trip there to see how Coke was made and how it ran. We would go to see the banks, take field trips to the bank and see how a bank operates, and have an appreciation for what money is all about and how it's handled and what you do with it and how it works through a bank. Went to a farm to see how a farm operates, and learning things like that, being there to learn them, not didn't happen for the kids that were in the public schools on a TV screen, has a bigger impact Charlie on Davis, who was the music man here on memorable experience that will last longer than doing band with chorus, so the kids performing and the mellow men, and we had all that. We had the ability to do these things, also being where we were and being in the time that we were. I would wish for everybody to have the kind of growing up that we had. Not just in school, but in everything.
Did you guys do field trips a lot at Keith?
I wouldn't say a lot, but we'd probably do 3 or 4 a year. And if you went to summer school, which we did every now and then, there were definite advantages to Keith.
Did you have a favorite teacher when you were younger?
They were all so great, I really didn't. I couldn't pick out a favorite one.
So how were classrooms set up and organized?
The building, that's what worries or bothers me, that the building's coming down, because if you ever wanted to have a perfect architectural design for a classroom building, Keith School is it. You had kindergarten and first grade and second grade on the first floor, and on the second floor you had third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and sixth grade. And then the other wing was the junior high, where you had 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. And in between you had the library on the second floor, and you had the demonstration room, which was every year. Did you go to summer school? I would say in this, usually where your music was held. In the years that we went there, gym, I probably locker rooms were in the basement. The band room was in the basement. What is now the old Pittsburgh International Airport setup, not the one that you guys know now, actually, the old one. For an brand new one-room schoolhouse field trip down there in summer school, so that was kind proximity. Everybody was in close enough proximity that the older kids could help the younger kids, and the younger kids could ask actually for class that went down to a play. And really worked out really nice one time. So that sense of helping each other, and you got to know the kids in the other classes. It wasn't just your own class. So that when you see anybody today that went to Keith, and they may have been 3 or 4 years ahead of you or behind you, you still knew who they were, and you still, had memories and things to connect with. So it was always an expansion of just your own class to all the others as well.
Where's the demonstration room at?
It's
in Keith now.
It's still there. It's the rounded part of the building. If you
Okay. You said the gym was in the...
The gym was down... it was between the two wings, and it's now part. I think maybe it's English offices that are in there now.
Does it look fairly similar to what it did back then?
If you know what it looked back then, yeah. Otherwise, it's all gutted and divided up into cubicles for offices.
Do you remember who was in charge of Keith?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Davis was our principal, and Dr. Hohenstein was his assistant, and then became the principal when Dr. Davis retired.
Did they teach at the university?
I think they both had, yeah. Dr. Pratt, even though he was president of the university, he would come down sometimes just to go through and see everybody, and it was like having a grandfather around. He was a nice man.
Did you have a favorite subject?
English.
English?
Mm-hmm.
Why English?
It was easy.
It was easy.
I love to read and I like to write, and it was just kind of natural for me.
I was an art kid.
I wish I had art ability. I never did. I know what I like. I just don't know how to draw it myself.
It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a least favorite subject?
Look at the building from the back. What's considered the back?
Probably
if you look
math.
from the front, which is looking from
I was
Leonard
all
Hall
right for a
side.
while.
It's on the right-hand side.
I could get
and
through
you see
algebra
the
when I
turf.
got to geometry. It was like a foreign country.
For you
Me
to see.
too. I could do trig, but not geometry.
Yeah, geometry was another. Yep.
Did they have sports teams at Keith?
Basketball.
Just basketball.
I think
Boys
continuing ed,
basketball.
or we had some
Maybe it's
intramural
English
games
offices.
between the classes and all, but it was boys basketball. Did have a group that went to different schools, just in the area. It doesn't go out to the extent that it does today. But at least we had a team, yeah, and cheerleaders, and, the whole 9 yards.
What kind of intramural sports did you guys have for like gym class or that? Did you play?
Oh, things, German kick and basketball and
Dodgeball?
oh yeah, dodgeball. You remember that too, huh? They tried to do soccer once, and that just kind of fell apart. That was probably about it. It didn't take a lot to keep us happy. We were well-behaved kids. That was one of the hallmarks of Keith School, was how well-behaved, and we had manners, and we had courtesy and discipline, and we were kind of known for that. But we had our moments too. In fact, when we had our Keith reunion last year, we gave out little pardons for some of the kids that we knew had done this or that.
Did you guys have recess too at school?
Yeah, kind of.
Kinda.
Yeah, it wasn't like it is today. We'd go out maybe for 10 or 15 minutes. Not necessarily every day, but if it was a nice day, we'd be out doing something, even if it was just for a walk in the woods.
I was curious because I know it seems lately they've been cutting back recess, and I know gym is only required like maybe 9 weeks out of the school year.
Yeah.
So I was curious how different it is now compared to then
Yeah,
in that term.
You would go out the night if the days were nice. You usually went out. Sometimes we'd play softball. Sometimes it was just running races, just anything to run the energy off, pretty much. But by the time we were in junior high, that wasn't the case. In fact, I'm thinking that after maybe third or fourth grade, we didn't bother with that so much too. But I'm not sure about that.
What'd you do in the winter time for recess? Did they let
The
you go
gym.
out or
Gym.
Gym. So what was what was the school curriculum like when you were?
Typical, anything, just learning. In first grade was kind of like the basics of everything, getting a handle on the basics. In kindergarten, first of all, you didn't have to have a test to get into kindergarten like you do today. And the teachers in kindergarten are the ones who were responsible for teaching you your colors and your numbers, and the statute had run out. You were allowed to be a kid up until the time you went to school, at least. Now the kids aren't. Their penance would be having to explain to their kids about their first grade, what they had done to deserve having to have a pardon. So print kind of a rise out of everybody.
And by second
had a good
grade,
time out
we're
of that.
starting to learn how to do what you call cursive today. We called it script back then. And by the time you're in third grade, you're doing very well at it and doing reports and things like that. You were always doing book reports by the time you went to fourth grade. From that time on, it was just, learning the basics and learning the information past the basics when you got into things like your numbers. The one thing with doing arithmetic, you had your numbers, and then you learned the addition, and then you learned subtraction. But you used flashcards, and you learned to do it in your head. And to this day, I have, if the cash registers are out at the grocery store because the electricity went off or anything, and I'd have the figure of how much they owed me from change in my head before the girl would see it on the thing, and she wouldn't understand how I got to that because they never did it. But we had flashcards and were smart on that. And then got into the higher math as we got along, science project. We always had our spelling tests every week. You had your spelling list, and then you had your Thursday was your chance to kind of make sure that you knew it, and then Friday you had your tests. And you usually had a group of kids compete with another group and all, and had your spelling tests on Fridays. So science class, we did some minor projects or experiments, I should say, and they were interesting. I wasn't altogether into them all that much. And of course your history classes with all your maps and stuff, so it was really good. We had student teachers in every subject. Student teachers were there for 18 weeks, although some would change in 9 weeks. Definitely in art and music and phys ed, they usually changed over every 9 weeks. But the rest were there for the full 18 weeks. It was a good, sound, solid education that has served all of us well.
Was there heavy emphasis on tests?
No. I think maybe in the whole time I was at Keith, there might have been 2 what they call now standardized tests.
Okay, sounds good.
Other than that, it was just your usually end of the unit kind of thing. And no big deal about things like finals and that type of stuff. No, it was a much more relaxed thing. You wanted to learn. You went home at the end of a school day and you could hardly wait till you could get back the next day. You really wanted to learn. If nothing else, they instilled that in you without you knowing it, and without them even having to try very much. It wasn't drilled into you like today. The kids, oh yes, we don't get a break from it.
I think the tests have sort of ruined the enjoyment in school.
And the incentive. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, you're right. And with what they're teaching in school, it isn't always what that was always
the kids
really
really
need
need
to know. I've always said there's a 4th R missing. It's always been reading, writing, and arithmetic. There's a 4th R that's never seems to be remembered. Relevance. If the kids today don't see the relevance for it, they're not going to care about it, trying to learn it.
So was Keith involved in the community at all?
To a certain extent. We would go up and paint windows at Halloween and Christmas time, and the store owners really enjoyed us being able to do that for them. But other than that, there wasn't too much involvement, except that families own businesses, and we were all from those families. A lot of us were from a lot of those families, and everybody knew everybody.
What year did you graduate from Keith? Like,
I went over to the high school after 8th grade instead of staying for 10th. I wanted to stay, but it didn't work that way. And so I would have graduated in 57.
where did you go after Keith?
Indiana High School.
Indiana High School. What was the transition like? Was it pretty easy of a transition?
Wasn't that much different in terms of, I knew some of the kids just because some of them were in my neighborhood, and it wasn't any different, not that much difference at all.
What would you say was unique about Keith compared to Indiana?
Probably the opportunities we had for things like the field trips that we took, connection up here at IUP with Fisher and different things that were going on campus that we had the advantage to get to see. Probably the teachers and the student-teacher connection, that type of stuff that was probably an advantage there. It was just nice.
Did you have more of like a one-on-one experience between like being a student and a teacher at Keith? Like you had more of a...
Actually, not that. I didn't notice that much difference because the teachers at the high school were just as good. They were very excellent teachers too. All the teachers back then, I think, were a different caliber than what we have today, unfortunately. We had really good teachers back then with a solid background in what they were teaching. And they weren't being overrun by having to have test schedules and all these demands that are being made and teaching courses that really shouldn't be bothered with, that they have to teach today.
Do you have a favorite memory from your time at Keith?
Just being at Keith. When you think of that, you think of the whole thing. There isn't any one thing that stands out other than the friends. The not just classmates, but the entire anybody that you knew that went there. That was a connection that you kept for life and still do to this day. That's the best thing from it. Other than the education, that education was unbelievable. That was a foundation that should be, everybody that would have that would be very lucky. That was a really good, sound background. Okay.
What extracurricular activities did Keith have?
We had our usual clubs that you have in schools, that type of thing. That's about it.
Did you guys have band, chorus? Did you have marching band?
Yeah, we had band. It wasn't a marching band at first, but there wasn't any money for uniforms until Mr. Bergeraff, our band director, decided it was time maybe that we should have them. So we all went out and solicited family and friends and neighbors and business people uptown, and we raised enough money that I think I was in 7th grade. We became the first uniformed marching band for Keith School. And we got to go on some of the parades and stuff. So that was kind of nice.
What'd you play?
Clarinet.
Did you enjoy playing the clarinet, or did you ever want to switch instruments?
I thought about switching to flute once, but I didn't have time to do that too, so I just let it go.
It's a different embouchure.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, like blowing into a straw.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, was there like a school rivalry between Keith and another school?
Mm-mm.
Like, no?
No, other than the public schools. They called us brats. I think out of jealousy. But other than that, no, there weren't any other schools. There weren't any other schools like Keith around right then.
Was Keith private? Was it a private school, or was
Not
it?
exactly, no. I don't think I'd call it private. I suppose to a degree it might be.
I was curious.
It wasn't
I never
thought of that way, I don't think.
It was viewed as a public school, just
No,
a
not as a
different one?
public. It was university related or college related. It was Indiana State Teachers College back then. It wasn't IUP. I suppose some people might have considered it private. I don't think any of us ever thought of it that way, though.
Is that where the student teachers came from?
IUP, yeah.
Did you have an after-school job at all at a point?
I worked at a hardware store, and then when I was a little bit older, I worked at a jewelry store. I always wanted to be out working and doing something. I was a lifeguard at the swimming pool in the summer. That's about it.
Lifeguarding seems kind of scary.
Oh, that's fun. It's fun. If you like to swim. One thing we did have an advantage too with regard to the swimming, we did get to go up to the college gym for our phys ed and have swimming classes, and we got to get certified in junior life saving and stuff like that, so that was an advantage there too.
Did they teach you like in health classes or that at school, like the Heimlich and all that
Things
stuff?
like that didn't exist then.
Oh.
You didn't have CPR and Heimlich. People didn't know about those yet.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Those didn't come along until around the 60s and into the 70s. In fact, actually, I would say not even the 60s. Dr. Saffer in Pittsburgh started the CPR stuff probably late in the 60s. By the 70s, it was starting to catch on much more. And by between the 70s and the 80s, it was really going full-blown, and they were changing designs of ambulances and doing all kinds of things like that. I don't know if I but it took until about 70 before that was happening, and the Heimlich came along shortly after the CPR, so I'd say another 10 years after that.
Wow. We get taught
Sure.
in school now in health classes, and you get certified and all that.
Yeah.
I just thought it was something that's
That
been
was
going
always
on
there.
for, yeah.
No, it started in the late 60s into the 70s were the prime starting areas, and then it got full blown after that.
So the majority of kids that attended Keith, were they like from working class families or mainly professors' kids, or
Not mainly.
pretty
no.
mixed?
It was it was pretty mixed. Most of it was just town folk. It became a lot of professors' families as time went on after, I'd say, probably from the early to mid 60s until they completely closed. It became more professor-oriented families than it was before. But no, we were just from our group, or our generation, probably more from business people in town than anything else.
So when it made the transition to K through 6, it became mainly professors' kids? So did you go on to college after?
A lot. There were a few others.
You graduated
but yeah,
high school?
A lot of it was
the majority.
that. Mm-hmm.
Would you say that the school and the community had a good working relationship with each other?
Keith?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There wasn't too much contact otherwise. I mean, it was just family. It was more because you were family with who was working uptown or working in the businesses around. It wasn't necessarily that you had any other connection with them.
So what year did Keith stop being used as a school before it became part of IUP to be used for classes?
When they moved over to Davis Hall.
Did that have any type of impact on the community, or?
It did on those of us who went here. We were sorry to see it go. But the college had gotten so big by that time, I don't think anybody cared one way or the other otherwise. It was just those of us who had gone here and knew what a unique experience we had had, and hated to see not having others have it too.
Are you still in contact with everybody that you went to school with, or
Pretty
the
much.
majority?
Pretty much, yeah.
Was it nice seeing them at the reunion?
Oh, it was great. Absolutely. Yeah, we have a group from my class that meets every month for dinner just to get together. We look for excuses to get together whenever anybody's in town for vacation or to stop in. We gather up and go for dinner again, just to get together.
How often do you guys do reunions?
The Keith reunion's not that often. High school, every 5 years.
How often did you try to get the Keith reunion together? Like
There had
every
never-
10? Or?
The one that we just had, because the building's coming down, was phenomenal to get that many people there. Even our old school nurse was there. She's still hanging in there. She's in her 90s now. So everybody that had anything to do with it that could come, came. Both Dr. Pratt and Dr. Davis's daughters were going to come, but ill health kept them both not able to make it. One from Texas, and the other one, I think, was State College.
It was nice that you guys got to do a reunion, though.
It was. It was nice to get back to the building. And there was, in fact, some of them were saying about how great it was to kind of just take a step back in time to when things were so much nicer than they are in the world today, and it gave them a break. And they appreciated that. They had, and I can't remember what year, I'd have to get that up for you.
It bring
I
back
should have known
memories,
that.
getting to see the
Definitely.
building.
Definitely. I'm going to say it stopped completely. It's the same 72, but I'm not positive. It's the same as it was back then. I would say that the same tile on here still has the shine to it. The cement steps still have to go over to Davis. A lot of sturdiness left in them, even though they have some pock marks that are starting to probably take their toll. The tile on the wall are still the same color and still in great shape in most cases. Because the building was coming down, I know IUP hasn't kept it up the last few years, so things like the bathrooms and all were not in the greatest of shape. But the building itself is probably a better building than they can ever put up to replace it, because it was built better than they build today. But yeah, that building, just to walk back into it, took you back 60, 70 years, however many years you needed to go back. And it was like seeing everything all over again the way it was then.
Must be nice that it didn't change too much.
Yeah, it was great. Terrific.
Have you seen the new building? The new humanities building that they put in?
Mm-mm.
It's big.
Yeah, too big. Everything's too big over here now. This used to be a nice little college in the corner of the town. Once upon a time.
Was it very small when it started?
It was nice size. It just took up pretty much the border from between Pratt Drive and 11th Street, and everything was
never.
in between. There had been somebody tried to do one
So
in
it's grown
69.
fairly large since then.
But they didn't do it here at the building, the whole town. And they had a nice turnout. I don't think it's big what they hoped. I'm not sure about that, because I didn't even know about it till it was over.
How does it make you feel that
But,
Keith's going to be torn down here?
Terrible. If for nothing else, as I said, the architectural value of an ideal classroom building should stay there, just because it was such a success story of education at the time, and wouldn't have to not be the same today. It could be done the same way today. I know you'd have to have a bigger building, because everything always has to be bigger and better, but you know, like I always say, newer isn't necessarily better. Always joke or something beforehand. But yeah, I hate to see the building, because when that building comes down, there are an awful lot of memories that are going to be gone too. Not gone, but yeah. The building was a touchstone for all of us. It was something that we could
look back on and draw from and remember, and even remember a teacher up at the front of the room saying a certain thing that would give us what we needed to know for the moment that we were thinking about it, that type of thing. And we'll still have that in our minds. But it would have been nice to have the building too.
I was curious about that because mine's getting torn down, and
Yeah, you mentioned that last week,
yeah.
But you kids don't apparently have the same connection or tie to it to care that much.
I have the memories, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a building to me.
Yeah, but you told me last week too that you don't have the tight friendships that we had.
Yeah, it's different. People, I think, grow apart now more so than then because the majority of us end up leaving the area. We move away or go to school somewhere else, and I think that might be part of a reason.
How much
why.
of it is because the schools are so big too? How big is your school?
My class had, I think, 179 that graduated. So fairly small compared to a lot of other schools in the area graduating class. But our class sizes were, maybe you'd have like 20, 25 kids in the room, maybe less than that depending. You know everybody, but...
Yeah, I know. But it's not... Are they kids that you would be playing with in the neighborhood and you're all going to the same school too? Anything
Neighborhood-wise, most of us were spaced out. It's not like Indiana as close as it is. It's more spread out. So most of the kids that were in my class actually didn't live in my neighborhood. They lived in like another neighborhood over this way or over on the other side.
Okay.
So we were pretty spaced out.
So you weren't picking up on your
You
bike
can't
in
ride
the
your
morning
bike
and running?
and
Okay.
too far.
Oh, boy. It's too
Unfortunate.
bad. It's too bad because you kids missed out on a fun growing up. Not that you didn't, for what you knew, you had that, but it wasn't anything like what we had, and it's a shame. When they started to when they consolidated the schools and made them so big, that helped to do it. Plus people moving to the country so much more than they did to get out of towns, and towns not being malls coming in and displacing downtowns. That's what's ruined Indiana, part of what's ruined Indiana.
So what life lessons did you learn at Keith? Did it teach you any life lessons?
Everything.
Taught you everything you needed to know?
That's true. Actually, we had one of our teachers, actually she was an English teacher, told us that when and this has been just a few years ago, she told us that when we left Keith School, we had enough education to be able to,
I just walked up there and looked in the window.
we had enough education to be able to go in and actually teach if we had wanted to, directly from there. And she compared that with student teachers of today, who she said can go through all 4 years of college and they don't have anything close to what we had when we finished Keith School. And that's from a teacher who taught there and supervised student teachers from here after she finished at Keith. So she had a handle on what the comparison would be, and that's what she told us.
Wow.
That says a lot about a lot of things.
Did you move away from Indiana at all after school?
Would have liked to, but didn't,
Stayed around here.
unfortunately.
So how does Indiana as a town compare today to how it was back then? Has it changed a lot?
Yes,
Drastically, would you say?
I would say, yeah. How about the word terrible?
the town isn't anything close to being as nice as it used to be. There's nothing to go downtown for. Nobody can go down there and shop. You used to be able to go to town on Friday and Saturday nights when we were kids, and you could barely get through the streets because everybody was there. You'd see all your friends, and then all the people in the stores knew you, and you knew them, and it was just like a town gathering every weekend, or every Friday and Saturday, that is. But there's nothing to go downtown to shop for anymore. You have to go to the malls, and the malls aren't all that great. We don't have, they've taken down a lot of the beautiful trees. Trees are part of the character of a town, and they went through some kind of a redevelopment thing where they took down a lot of the gorgeous trees and have destroyed the appearances of different things. The college, unfortunately, is responsible for having allowed the encroachment to get to the point where it's so bad. And you can always tell where the student housing is all over town because the buildings, the houses that were once very nice looking are pretty bad looking now. And they've allowed beautiful homes to be torn down and different things put in their places, whether it's a frat house or another house or a parking lot. And it's really destroyed what was once a very nice, pleasant, comfortable town that you appreciated and enjoyed. It's really a shame.
So the upkeep hasn't been good.
It's not necessarily the upkeep, it's just the fact that they allowed things to get so dilapidated and allowed it to everything is catering. Everything in the town catered to the college, and the college took advantage of it and took everything they could get and then some, and are continuing to do so.
Would
the
you say
relationship in the town and the college is bad, and it's never going to get better.
a lot of tension?
A lot of anger. A lot of anger. A lot of regret and a lot of recrimination on those who allowed it to happen. That means borough council as well as the college.
Has business changed a lot in the community since
yeah.
then and now,
Oh,
too?
yeah, we had a vibrant uptown. We had stores that were just packed with people and things that you needed and things that you'd run into a store and get and run out. And
Business was booming.
It was. In so many different kinds of stores and things. There were 4 or 5 hardware stores, the kind where you could go in and buy 4 or 5 nails instead of having to go buy a whole box. 2 or 3 5 and 10s, a couple of grocery stores uptown that you could go into. There was a fresh fruit store that had fresh fruit and produce every day uptown, right in the middle of town. Of course, Brody's on the corner, and the children's shop, and Waxler's men's store, and just so many really nice stores that aren't there anymore. And it's a shame. I keep seeing one of the men from Chamber of Commerce who has a store uptown keep saying, buy Indiana first, come uptown to Indiana, to come uptown to Philadelphia Street. Why? There's nothing there to go for. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's not much in terms of shops.
Nope. What's up there is more trendy toward kids from the college than it is anything that people from town would want. And people will not, my husband and I are included in this, we won't go for dinner usually to much of any place in town. Once in a while we will, but it's very seldom, because we don't want to have to be around where the college kids are. And there are a lot of families and people that feel the same way we do. We'll drive to Latrobe or Greensburg or Pittsburgh before we'll go to town to dinner here in town. And a lot of people feel that way.
Seems like it's resembling Johnstown a little bit with
A
some
lot.
stuff.
I would draw a real comparison that.
We
Yeah,
don't
'cause-
have as big of the college problem though
No,
in Johnstown.
but your
We're spaced
downtown
out.
isn't what it used to be at
Oh,
all.
no.
I remember going over there as a kid. We'd go there to shop at Penn Traffic and all. I remember Johnstown very well when I was small.
Not
And-
much there now.
No, it's a shame.
Couple little stores and some. They're actually getting some coffee shops and like it's a little bit more than what it used to be, but compared to what my dad and my grandparents tell me, it's nothing like what it used to be like.
My brother-in-law was living in Indianapolis when we were first married. So that was in the, let's see, it would have been about 59 or 60, I guess. And my in-laws went out to visit, and when they came back from there, they were telling us about these malls that were springing up out there. They hadn't hit back here yet. And they're telling what they're like, and we're listening and everything, and I said, that's ridiculous. If you have these malls in all these towns, they're going to ruin the towns. You're not going to have any business areas in your towns anymore. These malls are not a good thing. And of course, they all looked at me as if I was nuts. But how could you not know that that's what would eventually happen? And now you have malls that are, because it's either too costly for people to rent them, to have a business in them, or people aren't buying anymore. They're having Pittsburgh Mills is about half full. They don't have half the spaces filled up in Pittsburgh Mills Mall that they used to have. So there's one that's going to end up being a ghost mall at some point. So now where are we? Back trying to rebuild the towns again? It's ridiculous.
It's like the Galleria Mall. My mom said just the other day, she was just in there, and she said the second floor, there's like nothing there.
Yeah,
I'm honestly surprised it's still going.
really.
But mainly because otherwise we would have to drive to Altoona
Yeah.
or go to Westmoreland Mall in Greensburg.
Mm-hmm.
And some people don't want to drive that.
That's
so,
quite a trip.
Yeah. Altoona's like 45 minutes and Greensburg's an hour and 20.
Right.
It's far to just go
Oh, boy.
pick something up.
That's a shame.
Yeah. So you run a critter camp now.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me a little bit about your business and what you do exactly?
I'm a licensed wildlife rehabber, licensed by the Game Commission in the state of Pennsylvania to take in orphaned, injured, and sick wildlife animals and try to get them grown, healed, or whatever to get them back into the wild where they belong. So we take in probably around between 400 and 500 or so animals every year, especially orphans. It's the busy time, spring and summer. And that's what I do.
Is it rewarding work?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I can't think of anything there isn't anything I'd rather do. It's just great. The animals teach me more than you can imagine. If we were all like them, life would be a heck of a lot better for everybody.
What made you want to run a wildlife rehabilitation center?
I didn't even know there was such a thing. We moved to the country 33 years ago. We lived in town till then. And 3 weeks after we moved in, the game warden showed up in the driveway with a baby raccoon and said it needed a mother. Was I interested? And I've been doing it ever since. Like I said, I didn't even know there was such a thing till then.
What kind of animals do you usually get?
You name it. We get fawns, possums. Penny Possum is our wildlife ambassador, and she goes to the schools with me and talks to the kids about what to do and not to do if they find an animal that needs help so they don't get hurt helping it and the animal doesn't get hurt because they don't know how to handle it. Raccoons, squirrels, bunnies, coyotes, foxes. What else do I get? baby fishers. Anyhow, any animal in the woods. I don't do birds anymore. I used to do birds, but I got too busy, and baby birds need fed every 20 minutes, and to try to feed a baby raccoon and a baby bird at the same time doesn't work. So I dropped the birds and do just the mammals now, but we've got quite a bunch of them.
Ever gotten any like baby mountain lions?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Mm-mm. But they are around. They are here. Most of these crazy animals like that, who the Game Commission continues to say aren't there, but they've had to admit that they are, a lot of these are because people go into Ohio to the exotic animal sales over there, and they aren't told that they're not supposed to take animals across state lines. So they bring them back here. They bring this cute little leopard or this cute little cougar or this cute little raccoon or fox or whatever. And then when they get so big and they don't know what to do with them anymore, then they just let them go and figure they'll figure it out for themselves. And that's why we have some of the problems that these animals, most of the problems animals have are because of humans. So what you can do to try to help them out is necessary. And you want to help them because you've caused it. So.
Have you ever gotten an animal that you would never think somebody would bring you to take care of?
The baby fisher. The baby fisher is the one that surprised me because fishers are so elusive and they're the fiercest animal in the forest that I figured, I'll never have one. And the Game Commission was so surprised because their officers, there were only one or two of them that had ever seen a baby one too. So I had a whole stream of game wardens stopping in that whole summer to see this baby because they'd never seen anything but the adults before. So yeah, that one was a surprise. But she was fun too.
Hyper?
A little bit, but like a weasel. You know, they're
okay.
part of the weasel family. And because they're so, you know, the way they move, you know how a weasel will move around and be so fluid. And she could be an armful when she got a little older that she wanted to try to squeeze out of my arms and get somewhere that I didn't want her to get. She was something else, but she was fun.
Have you ever gotten any turtles?
Couple times, but I usually take them down to the Wildlife Center in Pittsburgh. We have a girl down there who knows all about turtles, and I can just take them down there and she'll handle them for me.
My dog caught a turtle
Ooh.
once.
I hope it wasn't a snapping turtle.
I don't know what it was. I thought it was a chew toy from the neighbor's dog that she had stolen. And
Oh,
she
boy.
was gnawing on the shell, and
Oh, no.
I saw it was a turtle, and I got her away from it and poked its head out, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So we put it back in the woods and everything.
Okay.
It wasn't injured, but I don't even know how she found it. I've never seen, that was the first time I've ever seen a turtle
Yeah,
around
really?
here.
Really?
Like, just out in the
Okay.
wild.
Yeah, I have them walking through my yard.
Must be just where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a weird thing.
That would be,
Yeah.
especially with your dog deciding it was a chew toy. I like that.
Do you get porcupines at all?
I have had a baby porcupine. I haven't had any adults yet, other than one that I had to put down that had been hit by a car and needed it. There wasn't anything we could do except put it out of its misery. But yeah, the day will come, I'm sure, when I'll have one.
But you love your job.
Oh, love it. Absolutely. It's not a job. It's like I tell the kids when I do career days, you find what you want to do badly enough that you'd actually pay somebody to let you do it, and you find what you're supposed to do. That's kind of how I feel.
It's good.
I like teaching and I like nursing, but this is far better because I'm dealing with animals, not people.
So is there anything else that you'd like to share or go over, anything that we might not have covered?
No, it's just that Keith was a phenomenal experience for anybody who had the luck to be able to go there. But it's also from a different time, and I suppose it's hard for anybody to understand why we have the connection and the strong tie, not just to what we had there, but to the building itself. It was a whole different lifestyle for everybody back then. It was a whole different generational thing, with the world being a far better, no matter what was going on in the world, it was far less of a concern than the world today is. And so we were growing up in a whole different atmosphere than children today do. And Keith was just wonderful. There'll never be another one like it. And the other state schools had their lab schools, as they were called, too. And I would be curious to know if they had the same connection, the same feeling that we have. It's something I should try to find out. But I know that anybody here who went to Keith, and there are a lot of people in this town who went to Keith who have the same feeling. You can't go to Keith and not come away feeling like all of us do. I don't know what else to say.
Well, thank you very
It was
much.
the best.
Thanks for sharing your story and your experiences with Keith. We appreciate it.
It's not the same as being there, but hopefully people realize how nice it used to be for everybody anyway.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.